Welcome to our first episode of 2024 for Let's Start Justice. Thank you so much for continuing to be with us. So we appreciate those who join us each week via Radio Land on Bridge 99 FM and those who join us in listening via the JFJ social media platform. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ.
And I'm Jade Williams, Policy and Advocacy Specialist at JFJ.
So now that the office was closed and we got an opportunity, I believe, to rejuvenate and come back fresh for 2024, we hope to continue to serve the Jamaican people by doing the good work of JFJ. And I think with that in mind, I just want to point out to our listeners and supporters that the organization celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. And the celebration started when we did a little soft launch on December 10th, 2023, revealing our logo and just giving an indication of how we plan on celebrating this year. And throughout the rest of 2024, we're going to be hearing from members such as Susan Goff, former executive director of JFJ, Dr. Carolyn Gomes. We're going to be hearing from Horace Levy, all the stalwarts who have been celebrating JFJ and who were instrumental in several of the work that we have been doing and continue to do, and the type of legislative changes that the organization has managed to influence. Again, one of the proudest one that we can always speak of is the establishment of Indicom. So we have seen improvement in that regard. We were instrumental in the establishment of the Access to Information Act, which was passed in 2004 thereabout, I believe. So several legislation we have had an input over the years. So bear with us, but big things will be happening for the rest of 2024 for JFJ as we celebrate our 25th. Right, Jane?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excited?
I am nervously excited.
Nervously? Oh, Lordy. Well, we hope for 2024, Jade's nervousness will a little bit, fix itself. Yeah? All right. As usual, we start with our human rights recap of the week, and one that we welcome as we focus at the start of the program. For those who are not aware, there is the National Violence Prevention Commission. This is a commission that was established by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and it is chaired by Maureen Sams Vaughan. And the idea behind the commission is to do an assessment of sort of the different violence prevention programs that exist, not only within the government, but civil society organizations. And the commission has made a recommendation, if you will, that one of the best ways of really dealing with violence in the country is to have a total ban on corporal punishment in all settings, total ban. Because the commission led by Maureen Sams Vaughan had indicated that when you look at the levels of domestic violence, the murder rate, and so on, a lot of it stems from how we discipline our child. And I use that word discipline within the context of just giving an explanation, because certainly hitting a child with broom and belt buckle and the type of physical assault that we see on the nation's children, that's not discipline. But again, we use the terminology so we can get an understanding. From JFJ's standpoint, this is something we have been advocating for, where there would be a ban on corporal punishment in the educational setting. We had not spoken publicly on going all the way with a total ban that has been recommended by the commission, but it's certainly one that we welcome. And just to quickly indicate to the listeners that corporal punishment is currently banned in residential care facilities under the Child Care and Protection Act. It is banned within the early childhood institution, and there was a directive by the Ministry of Education for schools not to utilize corporal punishment within school setting. But the Education Act, despite promises by the government over the years, there was no actual legislative change. So JFJ had been calling for that. So with that in mind, we hope that the Prime Minister, when the throne speech is read this year, we will see the Education Act or any other relevant statute being so amended so that what is being recommended by the commission can actually be realized, because we can't keep making that sort of promise that violence is so bad. But at the same time, outside of the statute being changed, Jade, our position at JFJ is that you need to have that type of parenting support where we understand disciplinary measures, and it doesn't have to replicate what we see in foreign TV and so on. Like when I tell my son that, what's the thing? What's the punishment we give the kids? You're banned from something and curfew and so on.
Time out.
Time out.
Yes.
But we need to be looking at some of those measures, certainly, as a means of reducing violence in the country. So again, JFJ certainly welcomes that recommendation.
Thank you so much for that, Mikkel. We are going to quickly go into some of our other segments, which would include our right of the day and our trivia question for today. Our right of the day for today is that based in Section 13 of our Constitution, and it relates to our right to participation in our elections. Now, it is Section 13.3M, and it is our right to be registered as an elector, and every citizen in Jamaica has this right. And if you are qualified to be registered as an elector, then you are also qualified to vote in our free and fair elections. So that is your right of the day for today. And our trivia question for today is, what is the name of the legislation that governs the institution of states of public emergency? So what act allows for our government, or governs each time our government would call for a state of public emergency? And you can participate in the trivia by responding on our social media platforms, or you can call in at 876-676-4996.
All right. Thanks, Jade. Not on the agenda, but I just want to plug, because Jade did that. Did you know, on the right to vote and to participate in the electoral process? We have a local government election coming up, and JFJ isn't a political organization at all. Like you would have CAFE, for example, that speaks more to the issue. But certainly we recognize that the types of laws and the democratic institutions that exist, it requires participation from us. Local government speaks to what we demand from our electorate or elected officials at the local level within our municipalities. Garbage collection and so on, but it is another level of accountability that is required. So we do encourage people to get involved in the process and call on the government to have the local government election held. One of the recommendations from JFJ is that local government, though entrenched there, is the allowance for protracted delay, and maybe that is one of the things we should demand to be so reformed in the constitutional reform process. So just wanted to plug that importance so that we don't keep conflating the role of our members of parliament with our councillors and so on. Yeah?
Yes, indeed.
But in the spirit of moving on, we're touching on setting the agenda for national development. For those who follow the news cycle, we have been hearing much sober words coming from Mr. Howard Mitchell, who is an attorney at law, former president of the private sector organization, and he's with us today. So thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell, for joining. But before we invite Mr. Mitchell with some of the questions that we have, just wanted to say that as we enter 2024, civil society organizations, including Jamaicans for Justice, we have been sharing our vision for the year, as well as just generally what we want to see happening in the country. For JFJ, we spoke with the Jamaica Gleaner at the start of the year, urging the government to rethink its position on implementing excessive mandatory minimums, especially where children are concerned. We also spoke generally on how child rights are being dealt with in the country. So that was JFJ's call at the start of the year. We had another call that we made, and the Jamaica Gleaner will be publishing it in short order, that spoke to constitutional reform.
In addition to the calls that we would have made in the Gleaner, there were also some calls from the Jamaica Council of Churches who would have shared their vision for Jamaica in 2024. One of their major calls was for the reinstitution of the office of the political ombudsman, whose function is to oversee political campaigns and monitor the adherence of the code of conduct by political parties. And the position has been vacant since November of 2022, when the previous holder term would have ended. So despite the assurances that this role would have been absorbed by our electoral commission, we have not seen that transition take place. So it was one of the calls that the council would have made. The council also would have asked for a reversion to the normal procedure when tabling certain important reports, such as that from the Integrity Commission and from the Attorney General, to increase our accountability and ability to monitor.
Now, our special guest of today, Mr. Mitchell, also made several calls, and I wouldn't say it started in 2024. I think it started with that very profound and impactful speech that was made in 2023 at the PSOJ banquet. So, Mr. Mitchell, rather than speaking what we have here on paper, I will just start by asking you, and again, welcome to Let's Start Justice for JFJ. I will start by asking you what your vision for Jamaica is based on all of the public pronouncements that you've made, and again, this is another opportunity to share.
Thank you. That's an ambitious ask, but the Jamaica that I envision in the 21st century is one where primarily all of our citizens have an opportunity to be the best they can be within the constraints of a democratic society. Mm-hmm. All of us. Because Jamaicans are such creative people. We have so much initiative that what I would like to see is for us to firstly employ that creativity and initiative in building our country rather
Commission, constitutional reform, and so on. So I want us to pick up on some of those very specific topics on the other side of the break.
Organic Group of Companies presents Ready Salute 2024. It's an amazing 30-year starring the amazing Third World, Sanchez on Paul, Lucian Orcia Griffiths, Josie Wales, Benjamin, and Tom, Reno Africa, Punta, Savannah, Mortimer, Carry Along this more. Action starts at 7 p.m. sharp. Proudly St. Anne, come in your thousands for the preservation of reggae music.
Powerful people in the house. Come and meet some of the most powerful people in the world at the Caribbean's leading business conference, the 2024 Jamaica Stock Exchange 19th Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference, January 23rd to 25th at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel in Kingston. To participate, register at jamstockex.com or call 876-967-3271.
Rights we should all know.
Be a part of the solution. Tell us what you know. Give information to the security forces about things you see, suspicious activities in your community. If you have information and you are afraid to come forward, call Crime Stop. Call the Office of the Public Defender. Tell your pastor or a justice of the peace.
With every right, there is a responsibility.
Brought to you by the Office of the Public Defender.
You're now in tune to
The Bridge 99 FM
from Jamaica
to the world. Right.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion, champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We're talking national development and our collective and shared vision for the country. And we are joined by Mr. Howard Mitchell, attorney at law, former president of the private sector organization. And we're trying to tap into Mr. Mitchell's brain, if you will, on some of his positions. But I think we have to go back to the 2023 banquet, because you said some things that to date, the Jamaica Gleaner keeps making reference to some of those quotes in the writing of their articles. So let's start with a conversation of attitudes and values and that social re-engineering, as we call it.
Yes.
What exactly does that entail, and how do we talk about it within the educational setting and so on?
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Oh, good. First of all, it is apparent to me that over the maybe past 50 years, 50 years or so, the society has changed. Clearly, external and internal forces have changed the relationships within the society. So it's not that I am proposing that we go back to the days of Howdy and Tenki and all of that. It's that I am saying that I don't think as Jamaicans we have a clear idea codified in some way and established as to what our functional values and attitudes should be if we want a civilized society. And I would like to extract that so that what I am proposing and what I think has been taken up to some extent by civil society is what are our values and attitudes in the 21st century? What are the positive ones? What are the negative ones? How do we attempt to design and shape these responses, these values and attitudes in a way that will image a society that is uniquely Jamaican and works for us? I don't know if we have that kind of concept in mind. I think we're just a galang, day-to-day, hand-to-mouth. So and I think that's not useful for a society that is maturing and that is in a very difficult and challenging global circumstance.
Well, as you talk about the social reengineering, we have heard pronouncements from our education minister about a reintroduction of, for example, a civics curriculum in our educational facilities. And I know you would have mentioned that there are some gaps in our educational system as well. Is this reintroduction a good first step, or what else would you think we should introduce in our education
Well, the
system?
first step I would like to take is for us to understand that we have a democratic country and we elect a government to represent us, but that's not where the connection stops. There is a feedback loop, an involvement circle that must be maintained and nurtured. So all well and good, and much thanks to the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Education for moving, but it has to be something that is of the people, and the people must be involved in it. And what nurtures and supports a democracy is an aware and enlightened populace. So that where I start from is, do not tell me that you are teaching civics in some of the schools. Which of the schools? Why those? Why not all? And what does civics mean? Right? As far as I'm concerned, there are some basics. The Constitution in a simplified form, in a way that the teachers can use it to explain to the children, should be there from primary school. Similarly, the Charter of Human Rights. Similarly, an explanation of what our government is about. I hear you talking about local government and not to conflate local government with representative, the MPs and stuff like that. I don't think, I have been around this block for 73 years and I have a tertiary degree, and not being elitist, I'm just saying, I don't even understand sometimes what that relationship has become. I don't know how it works. I know how it is supposed to work, But that is what I'm talking about when I speak about civics, that our citizens must be aware of and acquainted with the democratic mechanisms in the society that allow them to realize their full potential.
And just to say, I've had the opportunity to look at the civics curriculum, and that is not it.
Well, there you go. So I'm glad you have had that opportunity, but I think many of us in the society have not, and this is what is being taught to our children, and only some of our children. And how is that right?
Yeah.
On what basis is that determined?
Yes, as you mentioned that, to segue a little bit to constitutional reform, I've had the opportunity just last night to speak to some 35 students, and I asked the question, how many of you are aware of the constitutional reform process? Not the issues, no, just the process. And only 6 students raised their hands. Only 6 of some 35. So what can we do differently? Because right now we're told that a bill will be tabled sometime in April, thereabout, from the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs to replace the monarchy with our own version of a president. We don't know what that version is at the moment. But what are your thoughts on the process?
I want to just point out to you, first of all, that the fact that 6 of your students raised their hands and said they know about it don't mean they know about it. I mean, they think they know about it.
Yeah, but I clarify that as well.
But look, the whole issue of constitutional reform, a constitution to me is such a sacred instrument, right? That if reform of it is going to take place, it mustn't take place behind my back, above my head, or out of my range. It must take place in a context where I understand fully as a citizen what is going on. And again, I said to you that I've been around here for a considerable period of time, and I am not even sure of what are the full implications of Jamaica becoming a republic. So in those circumstances, how can you expect somebody who doesn't have as much time as I do to read and fast and inquire into people's business, to them looking about a living, how can they participate in that? And if they don't participate in that, is it meaningful?
Yeah.
So I think it's a serious process that cannot be undertaken lightly. Now, I know that there are political implications. Every time, everything in this country is political. So when you open your mouth, you're either attacking one party or the other. Yeah. Well, as long as people realize that I'm attacking both parties, I'm fine, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that if you're undertaking it for political reasons, then first of all, you're missing the point, because a lot of people don't even give it any value. So you're not going to get a vote because of it. And I bet you explain it.
Yes. You know, we are finalizing our position at JFJ, and we saw the input of Professor Trevor Monroe. And you know, Prof, it's going to be very diligent in his feedback. And he said to us that we ought to be careful what recommendations we're making, not just at JFJ, but as civil society. For example, electing a prime minister directly. And he said you may be swapping out one thing because it sounds good, but what are the implications for that prime minister, for power and authority? So these are some of the things. Who is breaking these things down? So my question to you, Mr. Mitchell, what can be done differently? So we talk about the gaps and what needs to be done for people to be more involved, but what is the how? What would be your recommendation?
All right, the how of it is, well, and there are no quick fixes to this thing. What gone bad from a morning, you can't just fix it at 4 o'clock. But first of all, we need to start treating the Constitution as if it were the document that we say it is, the founding charter of our country. And everybody needs to be acquainted with it. It needs to be published in the newspaper on a Sunday with notes, and the media need to be invited to contribute to dialogue that explains it, first of all, before you talk about what you want to change it to and why you want to change it to something else.
Yes.
Okay? And yes, we've had town hall meetings. Some. I don't know how many. But, society like this, a town hall meeting, This is not North America where people have a lot of disposable time, Man, I look for them food, right? So I think in a society like this, you have to do more outreach than that. And you have to generate some interest because people not that interested in it. I don't get that feeling.
Not a bread and butter issue for people.
It's not a bread and butter issue, but it's a critical matter bearing on their lives.
Yes.
So I don't think it's something that can be rushed. First of all, that's what I say. The how, we need to spend time on the education of our people as to the content and meaning and implications of the existing constitution and the changes that we wish to input. And it will take time. And it needs to be a whole of society effort, not just the state. If the state is going to prepare a formula for a cake, I may not want to eat it.
Jade, Prof gave another feedback that at the end of the day, we have our own objective here at JFJ. We're a human rights organization. But you're right, the state can't be the one leading on it because you think the state going to be telling you that if you keep this power here, this is the implication of it. Both political parties have their own vested interest in maintaining power. I think Bruce Golding was one of the few who departed from willingly giving up some of the power vested in the Constitution.
The whole idea of a democracy is the interplay of dynamic forces, right? The church may have a particular view on the Constitution that I may disagree with. I, as commerce, for instance, may disagree with. You, the church may say the Constitution may say you can't run and do any business on Sunday. I am going to take a position on that. Is that the implications of a republic, that you give greater power to some one person to say that?
Yes.
We need to know these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
But when we come back, I do want to talk about, a little bit about your commentary on the assault on agencies and how we can respond as civil society and the agencies themselves in such a manner that can actually produce some fulsome defense.
Sure.
So when we come back from the break.
Your world station, The Bridge 99.
Hungry for deals? Get the new Crunch Sandwich Combo from KFC for just $600. A finger-licking good deal. The time by KFC is
1:30.
Moment of motivation on The Bridge 99 FM.
Hear me, I say, enjoy each accomplishment without trying to find another one. Savor the moment. Give thanks. Breathe. Smile. Yeah, man, you did it. It's okay to rest and feel good about what you have done.
Company presents Ready Salute 2024. It's an amazing 30-year starring the amazing Third World, Sanchez on Paul, Lucian Orsia Griffiths, Josie Whale, Tony Benjamin, and Tarina Africa, Punto Savannah, Mortimer, Termula, More action starts at 7 p.m. sharp. Proudly St. Anne, come in your thousands for the preservation of reggae music.
KFC! New crunch sandwich from KFC. Great flavor, great price, it's for me. KFC signature, hot and spicy. Chicken with the lettuce, mayo, fries and Pepsi. We've got you covered when you're hungry. The new crunch sandwich from KFC. We've got you covered when you're hungry. The new crunch sandwich from KFC.
Hungry for deals? Get the new Crunch Sandwich Combo from KFC. A small hot and spicy chicken sandwich with lettuce and mayo, plus fries and a Pepsi for just $600. Also available in barbecue. A finger-licking good deal. KFC.
Hey, blessed love to Zurich Spice House. Big up Bridge 99 FM. Keeping the music playing every time. Yep.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We are discussing our agenda for national development, and we are joined by Mr. Howard Mitchell, attorney at law and former PSOJ president. And prior to the break, Mr. Mitchell, we wanted to get your perspective. I know that you made a statement about assault on certain agencies. Firstly, I'd want you to I'm sure our viewers know because we've discussed it on the show. But I'd want you to give us an example of the kind of assault that you're referring to, and how best, in your opinion, could these agencies respond?
Okay, let me start from the base that if it is a democracy that we want, we need to understand that democratic societies are held together by institutions, by certain institutions. They're held together by the interplay of the state, commerce, which is the market, and civil society. And people have this idea that civil society is some kind of entity existing off in the stars. It's the combination of social elements, including individual citizens when they come together as a group. So that we have to understand that you cannot, in fact, have an organized society without organized institutions. Even if it is not a democratic society, there are institutions that hold it together. So if we decide that we do not want a particular institution, you have to look at it to see, if you remove it, what will that do to the democracy of your society? And therefore, my conclusion is looking at some of the internecine warfare that has been going on between the state and some of the organs it itself created is either indicative of a particular motive or insanity. Okay? You cannot establish, for instance, the Act for the Integrity Commission and then complain that the very act that you have established is being used to beat you with. You didn't know it was going to be used for that? And if that is the case, then the forum exists for you to bring a bill to amend it, stating why. It is not constructive or conducive to the maintenance of democratic ideals for you to go out a road and slang the institution that you yourself have established, you voted for, right? So that I gave the Integrity Commission as an example. No, the Integrity Commission is not perfect. It has made some mistakes.
Yes.
But that's the way to respond to it is within the appropriate democratic fora, right? Similarly, there are institutions such as the courts, which we are undermining because we are not giving them the resources to give the people justice, right? And either that effect, that impact is incompetence, malice, or insanity, right? Because it is obvious.
You know, we made I remember being in Parliament, Jade and we made a recommendation following on the 1995 report. For example, that certain institutions, such as the Integrity Commission, as was promised when it was the Office of the Contractor General, to be constitutionally entrenched. And we recall watching PBC with a joint select committee sitting, and several parliamentarians laughed. They scoffed at the recommendation and just said, no, won't be considered, moving right along. So I don't know how can the public be a little more informed and engaged and enraged at some of that type of posture.
Well, over the years, I have been fairly consistent on my concerns, expressing my concerns about the Parliament. Parliament is the highest court in the land. It is the center and repository of justice. It is the place where every citizen looks to defend the rights and to provide the structure that which the citizen can operate peacefully and with security. And Parliament is being treated as if it was a dance hall lawn. And it can only say to me that clearly the standard of our political representatives is representative of the lowest common denominator of the society we have become. And we need to fix that because it only have one way to go and it's not up. So I agree with you that when you see that reaction for your proposal, instead of a reasoned discussion, then it must cause a concern in your hearts as young people that everything is being taken for a joke. It's a parody. And if that's the case, then why are we attempting to carry out the sham? Why we don't just turn into a savage, chaotic society, which is not the case?
Yeah, you know, Mr. Mitchell, you also said something, just to continue on that thought process. What do we expect from our parliamentarians? And there was an article in the Gleaner that spoke about that, you know, the salaries gone right up. I hope our salaries can reach that level one day, but they're gone right up. And what are we getting in return? I think in the article it made mention, we have it here, about the number of legislation and so on that were passed. Some 18 in 2021, 2022 period. And only 3 were actually passed based on your recollection. 5 initiated and 9 nothing. I'm not sure for 2023.
Yeah, I don't have the 2023 numbers, but the Gleaner spoke to it in an editorial today,
Yes.
I think. They corrected some of my numbers. They look at it differently. I came up with 3, they come up with 6. But the fact is that I don't care what it is, right?
It's still not encouraging.
It's not encouraging. Our parliament is not justifying its existence as a legislative body. And look, I have been close to politics, very close. I mean, I started out with politics in 1968. Some of these people who complain that I'm a PNPR, that I'm a Labourite, don't understand my experience with this thing. I really don't. The political party, to me, is a means to an end to make my country work. And if they are not working to do that, then I don't want any of them. Okay? So when I cuss JLP and PNP same way. And the fact is that the processes in Parliament, look at this the undisclosed wealth orders thing. The Prime Minister 3 years ago
Yes, and it's one of those things that the
promised-
Crime Monitoring Oversight Committee,
Right.
CMOC, is
promise
monitoring.
that legislation. No, you make a commitment. But my understanding is cabinet don't even approve the drafting instructions. So we're not taking it seriously. Look, there are a lot of pressing matters before the parliament. So I understand if something slip or whatever, but don't just treat it casually, man, and don't go to the parliament with the limited time that you have and jump up and down and cuss bad word at each other and offer to fight people outside. That does not impress me with your performance. And as far as the salary increase is concerned, I am still waiting to see in 2024, since we are no longer paying peanuts, that we're not getting monkey. Okay, so I will be looking at the behavior and I will speak out about it as long as I have breath in my body.
Yes. And, you know, for our listeners, just to indicate, this is an important topic for JFJ because this is not a political issue. You have critical pieces of legislation, for example, the Domestic Violence Act from 2018. There's a recommendation report, and it's just late last year that we're getting a commitment that a joint select committee to review the Domestic Violence Act will be convened. You look at the Child Care Protection Act. I made mention at the start of the program around corporal punishment. The Prime Minister himself has made a commitment from 2017. It's now 2024 start, and yet we're hearing that it is being recommended by the Violence Prevention Commission.
But, you know, even as you talk about the pieces that were not touched, even the pieces of legislation that we have engendered to change, we're not fulsomely involved in the process. I read the report for the Child Care and Protection Criminal Justice Administration Act.
That's a mandatory minimum.
Committee, the mandatory minimum for murder review. And there were 2 members of that committee who attended no meetings at all. And it is unfathomable to me that we could have representatives in the parliament on an important piece of legislation like this, which the committee ended up recommending a life sentence for children, minimum 30 years in some cases, 50 years. So we're looking at serious sentences where 2 of our representatives did not even have input.
And for those who attended, Mr. Mitchell, well, you know, I'm choosing words carefully now, but I think we have to say it. We recall watching again one of the sitting of the Joint Select Committee, and it was the penultimate sitting that you had legislators asking to clarify sections of an act that they agreed to amend.
Yes.
And I mean basic sections that one would think they would have clarified at the start of the process.
Okay. There is a syndrome that will affect human beings when they are given tasks that are much beyond their competence and they're given no tools to perform them. They tend to then treat it as not important. And so maybe that, let us say that is what has happened to our parliament. I put it to you that what you need to do is give them some more actual resources,
Yes.
not the money, but give them people to help them with the research. Maybe, I hear about the new parliament building, but I would prefer to hear about what is in the content. What is the content?
More
what is going to go on in there?
drafters
More drafting
yes.
persons, more consultants, more people to help the parliamentarians understand the bills that come in front of them, some of which will tie us up for generations to come. So I'm not sure that we are treating the business of parliament in as serious a fashion as we should. And I'm not sure that our citizens do have I think our citizens have said, listen, I can't bother with it. I'll wait until election. I'll take the money, them give me to vote, and I'll go and vote. But I'm not part of this society. That's a dangerous trend.
Or we've been told, I know you have to go in another 2 minutes, but we've been told at JFJ, why are we making much ado about nothing? Leave the government. We elect them for a particular period. Let them do the crime prevention and the crime control mechanism. So I said, when you give the government extraordinary powers, you're acting on the premise that they're going to give it back after crime is reduced. So I don't know, just last word from you. What do you say to citizens who call for El Salvador and all of these strong measures?
I'm particularly interested in some of the social media comments that have been coming at me since I've spoken. That, as you say, leave the government alone. Why you don't go mind your own business and make some more money and all of that kind of thing? Fine. I don't intend to leave the government alone because I voted for them. I voted in the last election, so I don't intend to leave them alone. I'm not going to let somebody come into my house and do what they want to do in my house simply because I opened the door to let them in. And the fact is that if we don't know by now that violence begets violence, then we're not reading our Bible and we're not learning from our experience. So as far as the El Salvador situation is concerned, I hear those arguments, I mean, you're going to lock up all these people. You're going to have, we need a new jail, by the way, but we need a new jail to accommodate the people we have in there in more humane conditions. Yes. Right? Now, if you're going to try this El Salvador situation in Jamaica, let me encourage you to read the history of Jamaica and realize that Jamaica is not some Roman Catholic colonialist history. It is a set of bad people. So if you really want to start that game, I invite you to think about it twice. I don't think you can lock up our people as easily as you can lock up people who have been accustomed to hundreds of years of Christian propaganda.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell. We appreciate you, and we'll talk. All right? Great. We take the break, and then we return with some more.
At MOJ Ministry of Justice, come access quality service to keep order within the nation. We facilitate good relation. Legal aid in your pocket. A little is child diversion for you to need expertise. Victim service, we help you cope with grief. Restorative justice, build back the peace. No matter where you come from, and we say justice for all Jamaicans. MOJ Ministry of Justice, come access quality service.
MOJ, taking justice to the people of Jamaica.
Big up the Bridge 99 event.
Put it on yet again.
It's Jamaica.
The beautiful game.
There's a chance for a woman. Oh, they've scored! I do not believe what I've just seen.
Football's finest.
He scored! Oh, Troy Deeney has scored!
Game time, powered by Anybet.
El Capitano!
Fridays, 12 noon to 1 p.m.
Alexis at the back post, but
discussions, analysis, predictions, and odds that make you the winner. Only on the Bridge 99 FM.
Whatever you need, a fireman! Messi's the man to call!
Anybet, your best bet.
No borders, no boundaries. Just the sound of good music.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice, the people's champion, champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We were joined earlier by Mr. Howard Mitchell, attorney at law and former president of the PSOJ. And we discussed quite a bit because we believe at the start of the year it's important to have dialogue on things in terms of our expectation of parliamentarians as our legislators, how we balance those roles with them being members of parliament and so on. And, you know, within the context of our last discussion, there is the job description town hall being held, and I would encourage everyone to attend when those town halls are being convened, because you're going to be asking yourself the question, what do my legislators owe me? And as you answer that question, it should be recorded for a possible job description. And I know some people look at it and say, listen, we're not going within an academic exercise, but how do we hold our members of parliament accountable? Because quite frankly, the Constitution doesn't outline the very basic provisions, really. So something to think of.
You know, sure. And as we talk about town halls, and we had our discussion with Mr. Mitchell, one of the things that the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs would have been doing to push information on constitutional reform is town halls.
And there have been some improvements. Because they now have public education officers actually employed.
Yes.
So that's a start.
Okay. So there have been some steps taken. However,
I'll be the positive person beside you today.
You know, I just wanted to plug, because I looked out into the studio and saw our community and outreach engagement officer there, and we do intend to be hosting some town halls and public engagement of our own on constitutional reform, our recommendations, but just general understanding of the Constitution, as Mr. Mitchell would have said, and we would have identified already, that is a severely lacking area, and we can't expect persons to contribute to our process that what the process is about, they don't even understand.
You know, I won't say when, because I may disclose who I'm speaking of. But my son and I, we were in the car, and he listened to an interview between candidates in the local government election. And I was in complete shock based on what they were articulating and how they were articulating. And my son said to me, "Mommy, these are the best of the candidates."
Wow.
No, you would have to know that 15-year-old, because he was there listening to music. Apparently the music paused, and he just said, "Oh, no, let me pause that a bit longer." Because he said that the bar was apparently so low that some of what people were promising, like garbage collection, it's important.
Yes.
But it cannot be that something as basic a function of local government, this is what people are promising in 2024.
Building your campaign on a basic expectation is...
You know, and so it brings to light how can we educate the newer generation about some of these things, because again, he has the privilege of his school teaching certain things. He does history, and when I rant in the morning, he's forced to listen, not by choice, he's forced to. So he's a little bit more informed than the other teenagers. So how do we get that type of education so the newer generation can shift the needle in terms of accountability?
And you know, as you talk about garbage collection, one of the things that I think is a challenge for us is just the speed at which some things can no longer be points for accountability. I remember
like
last
water.
year,
water. You just get water in our constituency, you come and make it on news. You should be ashamed.
But you know, late last year we saw a discussion around a complete privatization of the National Solid Waste Management Agency.
And it's not the first, because there are some services within government that conversations have always been had whether or not we should privatize. The question I always ask, at what cost?
Yeah.
Let's look at JPS, for example.
Absolutely. So that is why I think it is so important for us to encourage this level of accountability.
Yeah.
Because it forces us to put those systems in place that allow the agencies to stay under government control rather than shifting it to privatization and ridding ourselves of that responsibility. So hopefully we can encourage some more participation. And, another thing Mr. Mitchell said that really resonated with me was about just the way our participatory processes are being used, and it is discouraging on occasion. I know we talked about the Integrity Commission Act and a submission that we would have made in relation to making it a constitutional body, something that was expected of the body. And to find we weren't the only persons that made that recommendation, and to hear the response from the persons considering that recommendation, it can make you question.
The minister laughed.
Yes.
Then scoffed.
It makes you question how participatory the processes that are supposed
really is.
That are there to encourage you. So
and to be clear for the listeners, we recognize that in some instances as civil society we may get certain things wrong.
Yeah.
Because these legislation, these different pieces, they're quite complex in several ways. In some instances you may have a short time span within which to respond. So we will make mistakes, but I can tell you on this one we didn't. Yeah? But beyond that, however, and Mr. Mitchell said it shouldn't be a scoff as the response. It ought to be a sober review, especially when you know that you're being streamed live.
Yes.
It is disrespectful to the process. I know sometimes the chair, Minister Edmund Bartlett, has had to intervene with his members to indicate that, listen, let's give people the respect they're here, let's listen, and it will be up for discussion. I remember several instances he has had to say it, whether it was JFJ presenting or other agencies. So, and Mr. Mitchell said it as well, the crisis in leadership and how we prepare parliamentarians to be parliamentarians. My 15-year-old has said to me, Mommy, there are certain comments that you yourself can't make. Yes. You're a mother, plus you represent JFJ. And he says that the same principle applies for our leaders, that you don't have the latitude of saying certain things and just regurgitating or just spitting out whatever comes to at the thought. So what do we expect of our leaders in terms of the type of training that they receive upon being elected to the House? Mr. Mitchell said it, for those who don't watch Parliament, yes, there was an actual come outside and let me show you what powers I have. People were inviting the other to come out and fight in the House.
Yes.
So what do we expect of our legislators when the pace of legislative making process is so slow? How do we demand accountability when, as citizens, we're not keeping abreast of the situation? So we have the power as citizens, as members of an electorate, but how are we enforcing it? If we're not aware of anything. And I can tell you, JFJ, we will be rising to the challenge put to us by Prof. Monroe, that it is not enough for us as civil society to say that we're not happy with leadership, we're not happy with the constitutional reform process. He says that, unfortunately so, more is expected of us in terms of how we demand that accountability. And JFJ, we're going to have to be doing the work. And let me say, this town hall meeting that you referred to earlier, it's not on any donor listing. It's not anything that donor is saying we must do. As a team, we sat, we realized what was happening, we recognized the inadequacy of the constitutional reform process in terms of public engagement. We also recognize that government is not going to be telling you why you ought not to be agreeing with not moving ahead with the CCJ, because that has become a political issue. Government is not going to be telling you to take away some of the powers of, for example, the Prime Minister or the executive branch, because they all want to retain such power to do what they will. So who tells you that? Who breaks it down to you? Who explains to you these provisions so that we can make sober decisions? I think that's a gap. And to Prof. Monroe, we will be taking on that challenge, I can tell you, because a body must do that.
Yes.
You know, because again, Jade, I tell you, we've had this conversation with several people in workshop settings, in community settings, and them say, make government do what them do. Crime rate high, mandatory minimum necessary. But when you really probe, there is a genuine lack of understanding of these matters. So, yeah, necessary work. Yeah,
absolutely, and we'll continue to do so throughout this year. We'll keep you all informed as we continue.
Yes.
Let's Talk Justice every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Now we have a winner for a trivia question, which was, what piece of legislation governs our states of emergency? The winner was Asasaji, back early in the year. But one of our normal listeners and responders on our trivia questions, the answer for the question was the Emergency Powers Act. And they were correct. So we will reach out with your prize via social media, and thank you for participating.
Just a last word on participation. For those who are listening in, please make contact via our WhatsApp number, which is 876-239-7583, or via social media, to indicate to us some of the human rights issues that you would want us to discuss on the program, to indicate to us as well who you would like to see on the program in articulating some of those positions. So another area, the human rights issues broadly and who, but also when it comes to constitutional reform, we're also inviting you to share with us what topics you would want us to go over or to better explain, because this is a public education program as well. So please keep that in mind and let us know what your thoughts are as we cater to your needs and what you want to hear from us on.
Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week. I'm Jade Williams.
And I'm Mikhail Jackson. Take care.
Jamaicans, for justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or Jamaicans4Justice.org.
The people's champion.
This is Alicia Scott and you're in tune to the Bridge 99 FM.
If you're in business, get on the bridge. 876-669